Okay, so the next two lines of the text that we're reading, the previous two lines says, like me, the countless living beings have been wandering in cyclic existence. Then many times they have been apparent to me and shown radiant kindness to me. Okay, so this leads us into the meditation, the Bodhichitta meditation, and there's two principal ways to develop Bodhichitta. One is through the 7-point instruction of cause and effect, and one is through equalizing, exchanging self and others. So this is talking specifically about the way to generate Bodhichitta through the 7-point cause and effect instructions, which begin by seeing all sentient beings as having been our mother or father, and thus having been kind to us. And then from there, naturally wanting to repay the kindness. So this method of developing Bodhichitta is much more directed at ourselves than the equalizing and exchanging self and others is. Because this one is, sentient beings have been my mother and been kind to me, whereas in the other, the equalizing, exchanging self and others, you meditate on the kindness of sentient beings, of the friends, of the strangers, of the enemies, of everybody, without them having had a special relationship to us in the past. But it is very helpful to meditate on this and think of the kindness of our parents towards us. Now, I know in Western culture that ever since the advent of Freud, this has not been a popular topic, and that many of us, unlike in Asian culture, grow up with the idea that our parents are at fault for all of our problems. And I think that can make it very difficult for us to practice if we have that attitude. Because as long as we attribute our pain and misery, or the cause of our pain and misery, to somebody else, that much longer we deprive ourselves of the power to heal. Because if it's somebody else's fault and it's in the past, there's nothing we can do to change it. Okay? Then some people are going to say, well, does that mean it's my fault? And no, it doesn't. In fact, I would actually like to get rid of the word fault altogether. Because when we have problems, there's no necessity to say it's one person's fault or another person's fault. Because fault implies blame, it implies negativity. I think it's much better when we look at situations to say different people have different shares of responsibility. That's all. Different people contribute different things to a situation without putting it as fault or blame. Okay? But within saying that, we have to remember that our parents are human beings, just as we are, and just as we are imperfect and want people to forgive our mistakes, to see that our parents are also imperfect and would like to be forgiven for their mistakes as well. I think raising a child is one of the most difficult things people do, and there's no education program for that in school. They don't teach you that in school. Yeah. You need a license to have a dog. You don't need a license to have a baby. But where do you need more responsibility? Towards a dog or a baby? Towards a baby, So to remember, people have kids and they have no idea really what they're doing. And for those of us who haven't had kids, if you were to all of a sudden have one, would you have any idea of how to raise this into an number one perfect sentient being who doesn't have any problems? we ourselves have problems. How can we raise a child who doesn't have problems? Unless that child is already a Buddha. Okay? So, to really look at our parents with some compassion, and to also reflect on their kindness, which in Asian culture you're taught very much. Your parents are kind to you, and you're taught how to see that. In America, people are not usually taught that. But if you think about it, our parents have been incredibly kind to us. Just, our mother carrying us in her body for the time of pregnancy. We're sitting there, squirming around and kicking, and, she has morning sickness and throws up, and, everything she goes through just on a physical level to have a baby is, and they call it labor for a purpose, for a reason. They say it's the hardest work you're going to do. And my mother even said, because I was the first child, that if she said, thank goodness you forget the pain, otherwise she wouldn't have had any more kids after having me, because it hurt so much. So, when we think of that and just on a physical level, what our parents went through to have us, that's an incredible amount of kindness. And they're the ones who gave us this body, which is the foundation of our precious human life. And if we didn't have this, we couldn't practice the Dharma. So whether our parents agree with our Buddhist practice or not, they still gave us this body and this life, And as infants, they made sure that we didn't kill ourselves or kill anybody else, as infants, you're always taking things and sticking them in your mouth and nearly choking. And I remember one day at DFF, we talked about the naughty things we did as kids. And, people were talking about putting metal things in your electric receptacles. And one person was saying one day that she and her friends were playing house, and so they made toast out of paper, and they put it in the toaster and put the toaster on, and it caught on fire. And I'm sure all of our parents have told us stories of things that we did when we were little, where we either did very dangerous things or extremely obnoxious things, But somehow they took care of us through all of that and kept us safe and kept everybody around us safe, Because as kids we were always falling and getting knocked down, or we would do things dangerous to other kids. We would throw rocks over fences, and throw sand in each other's eyes. And, and our parents really had to keep us safe, and they did. And they also made sure we got an education. Yeah, we wanted to play, and they made sure we went to school. They made sure we did our homework, and they even taught us to speak so that we could go out in society and talk to people, because it's only by the fact that our parents or if somebody else raised you, whoever else it was who raised you, there's only the fact that they took care of us and mouthed words to us that we even learned to speak, or to tie our shoes, or to go potty by ourselves. All these things that we learn that are very useful as adults. We learn from other people, and to really appreciate that kindness and the amount of time and energy they took to teach us. And the fact that somebody woke up in the middle of the night for years and years and years to feed us. Yeah. We don't like to be woken up in the middle of the night, even by the sound of somebody walking to the bathroom, let alone having to get out of bed and go feed them and, and clean up after them. And the whole thing is all you want to do is sleep. But our parents did this with, so much love towards us. So, to really be aware of of how much people took care of us when we were little and how much we benefited from it. And to really feel that care and see, how much indebted we are. And where did our food come from when we were kids? We didn't go out and work and earn the food. Somebody else went out to work. Our mom went out to work. Our dad went out to work. Somebody worked, so that there was food on the table. And we know that because we're alive. Because if there weren't food on the table, we wouldn't be alive. And if somebody didn't go to work for the food, there wouldn't have been food, So, did we even appreciate that when we were little, that other people spent day after day after day at a job, working, so that we would have food? And did they even like their job? How many of us came from families where our parents loved their job and loved going to work? Yeah? So when you really look at it, we see how kind people have been to us. And to let that into our hearts so we feel that kindness. And then automatically a wish comes to repay that kindness. And especially if we train our mind, to see all sentient beings as having been our parents, and that they've all been kind to us in that way, whether, we remember them in the previous life or not. Yeah? And in this regard, even, when we've been animals, they've been kind to us as our parents. And I remember two situations that have had big impacts on me. When I was at Kopan, there was this old dog named Sasha, her back legs were crippled and she couldn't walk. Somehow she had a litter of puppies. I don't know how. She loved those puppies so much, and even though she couldn't walk around even to take care of them or to find stuff to eat, she would just lick her puppies and nurse her puppies. And Sasha was so sick, she had maggots growing in her head, but she loved those puppies more than herself. And this is just biologically the way parents care for their kids. And if our parents couldn't take care of us directly, they made sure somebody took care of us. And then I also remember at Cloud Mountain the peacocks that we had, and one of the peahens had, her litter of like little peacocks, who were running all around, and she took such good care of them, the kind of when evening came, she somehow got them all together, I don't know how she did, and then sat on top of them so that they would be safe and they would be warm. And it was so endearing to see. And then she would teach them how to peck so that they would know how to get food for themselves, And you just see in Mother Nature how, parents, especially mothers, take care of their young. And to think in, so many lifetimes, living beings have taken care of us in this way. Yeah. Well, last year, one day I was taking a walk in the forest, and just along the path, there was some mother turkey who had her little nest very close, and I scared her, and then out come, there must have been 6 or 8 little teeny turkeys running in every direction, because I accidentally scared them, and I felt so bad, and I was just, saw Mama Turkey not knowing what to do because she was so concerned for the welfare of her young. And to think, whether we were born turkeys or peacocks or dogs or human beings, that other beings have had that level of love for us, totally unconditional. Because when you have a child, you don't know who is moving into your house, It is just unconditional the way the parents take care. Yeah? And so to really, let that in and feel their kindness and have a heartfelt wish to repay that kindness. Yeah. And so that will then lead us into developing love and compassion and the great resolve in bodhicitta.